Okay. So, bell ringer for today. So, name the 5 beaches at Normandy that the Allied powers invaded. There we go. There we go. I'll come around and check and give you credit. Should have, what, 5 of them? I think. Oh, Troy, we have your current event then. We'll do that after we're done here, I guess. Sound good? All right, 5 beaches at Normandy. What do we got here? What do we got? So, what are the 2 main ones the United States landed on? Griffin? Utah and Omaha. Good job. And then what about Great Britain and Canadian forces? Jeffrey?
Gold, Juno, and Sword.
Yeah, good job. Gold, Juno, and Sword. Do you know who you're messing with, Holmes? Oh, that's a good one. Knee slapper. Yeah, it is. What? What's the capital of Alaska? I know. Do you know? All right. Yeah. Okay. So 5 beaches. We talked about the D-Day invasion yesterday and the day before, and how this was breaking the Atlantic Wall at Normandy that the Germans had established there. Okay. Obviously, we talked about the paratroopers being placed behind enemy lines, cutting off supplies, reinforcements, travel routes to the defenses at Normandy. Okay, and how this invasion was a success. June 6th, 1944. Don't forget. Don't forget. And Eisenhower was the one who planned this invasion. All right, so terms for today. So, liberation of Paris and the French resistance fighters. There we go. Those are 2 terms. Give you another minute to finish up here. So you happy with Fields? The Bears?
Absolutely.
What, for the Bears? Their pick? Are you a big Fields fan or what? What's that?
She got my whole reaction that night.
Oh, did? Oh, you guys watch the draft together? You guys watch the draft together? Oh.
I was trying to have a serious conversation and every 3 seconds told me.
Whoa! All right, so Liberation of Paris, what do we have? I might have to find a new team, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Rodgers is leaving.
You think he's gone?
He wants out. He wants out, and then they go and pick a corner.
Whoever Rodgers goes, going Garrett's.
I don't know. We'll see. I don't know what to do. I've been a Packers fan since I was born, man. Brett Favre won that Super Bowl against the Patriots, 1997. Good stuff.
That's true.
Oh, well, what can you do? All right, what do we have here? Jeffrey, go ahead.
Liberation of Paris was a military battle that took place during World War II from August 19th, 1944 until Germany surrenders to the French capital on August 1944.
All right, good. So pretty much right around 7 weeks after the D-Day invasion, after the United States, Great Britain, Canadian forces broke that Atlantic wall at Normandy, obviously resupplying and making sure that they could fortify those beaches, they decided, well, we're going to move forward and we're going to try to push Germany back to their own borders. Okay, we'll talk about it today. Eisenhower actually didn't want to try to take Paris. Why do you think he didn't want to try to invade into Paris and take it over and liberate it? Why not? What do we think? Jeffrey, what do you think?
A little sort from them attacking them in Africa.
Okay. All right. What else? Kiara?
Germany did the same thing.
Okay. All right. It would take some time too, right? It would take a lot of resources, a lot of supplies, armaments, and there'd probably be a lot of deaths to it, right? And invading Paris would cause a lot of, I could say, time to accomplish this invasion into Paris. So Eisenhower, he didn't really want to try to take it over because it would just really just delay, I guess you'd say, the push of Germany back to their own borders. If they take over Germany, the war would be over. So what's the point of taking over Paris at that point? To try to liberate it from, obviously, the German occupation there. So eventually, which we'll talk about today, French resistance fighters actually pushed for the liberation of Paris to happen, to occur. Okay, Eisenhower just wanted to try to move past it, but after this revolt, I guess you could say, in Paris, it pushed Eisenhower and the forces, the Allied powers, to take over Paris. All right, so French resistance fighters, what do we have here? Griffin?
They were rural guerrilla bands of French resistance fighters called Peacekeepers during the Nazi occupation of France and World War II.
Yeah, good job. So these people oftentimes would hide amongst, obviously, the population there in France and try to do as many attacks on the German authority in Paris. Okay, try to disrupt communication, destroy any type of supply lines coming into Paris, try to kill any type of German high officials. So they're really just citizens, civilians in France trying to do their best to overthrow the power and the authority Germany had in Paris. So this could be by multiple reasons. Obviously, using propaganda to try to recruit and try to use the media for their advantage to make killing German high officials, killing German soldiers with bomb attacks, drive-by shootings, you name it. Disrupting any type of communications that might reach the defenses at Normandy, okay, along the Atlantic Wall, whatever it might be. There's many different ways that these French resistance fighters accomplish many of their tasks and trying to disrupt the authority Germany had in Paris. And how long was Germany occupying Paris and France? How long was this now? So when did Germany take over Paris? Trinity, go ahead.
More than 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years, right around 4 years. Good job. Good job. So 4 years now, Germany occupied the capital of France, and there was constant strife, constant revolt in Paris and many of these major cities in northern France because of German occupation there. But finally, we see the Allied powers liberating, France, the capital, Paris. All right, so moving on here. All right, so the D-Day invasion, we know, is successful, impactful, because we finally break that Atlantic wall in Germany, the Western Wall. We finally have boots on the ground in Europe. Obviously, we know the Eastern Front. We talked about the invasion in Italy, and now the D-Day invasion. So there's a three-front war for Germany to battle and supply and fortify these three lines. It's going to be hard for them to do it. It's just inevitable until the Allied powers actually push Germany back to their own borders. So that being said, supply lines, armaments, soldiers, troops all around Germany and internally in Europe have to be spread thin on these three fronts. At the same time, the Allied powers are bombing many of these industrial areas, these factories in Germany, trying to crush their supplies, crush their production. And like I said, it's just inevitable at this point when Germany's going to surrender, when the Allied powers are going to push them back to their own borders. Eventually to their capital, Berlin, which we'll talk about here soon. All right, so with that being said, so Paris, like I mentioned, Eisenhower, after 7 weeks of the D-Day invasion, he wanted to try to avoid Paris. He thought that this would be costly to try to invade and take over the capital of France. Obviously, there would be a lot of soldier deaths. Right? There would be a lot of casualties. There would be a lot of supplies in order to try to take over the capital of France. So Eisenhower wanted to try to avoid it, but the French resistance fighters actually helped out a lot during the D-Day invasion. How do you think these French resistance fighters helped out during this D-Day invasion, just 7 weeks before the liberation of Paris? Troy? Yeah, good job. So cutting off supplies, destroying bridges, cutting off railroads, any ways of transportation to fortify the defenses at Normandy. So yeah, the French resistance fighters actually played a huge role with the D-Day invasion and how it was successful. And like I mentioned, after the D-Day invasion, Eisenhower wanted to try to avoid Paris. He thought it would just take a little bit of time. But because of French resistance fighters and their constant revolts in Paris and uprising, these civilians and these citizens acting out and doing the best that they could to try to disrupt the authority of Germany in Paris. Like I said, this just didn't last for 1 year or anything like that, but this was 4 years of constant conflict in the capital of France. The civilians, the citizens, they didn't want Germany there. And there's talks of what might happen once Germany would be pushed out eventually. Would they be communistic? Would they be democracy? There's a lot of issues going on politically of the deciding after World War II. With that being said, they kind of all banded together to try to push the German authority out of the capital. And like I mentioned before, if it's just cutting off communications, writing articles, writing pamphlets, putting up posters of retaliation against the German authority, or drive-by shootings, bombs placed to try to kill German officials or German soldiers that were placed all throughout the city. There's many different ways that the resistance fighters fought against the German authorities. But their success there, right after the D-Day invasion, pushed the Allied powers, the United States, and Great Britain, Canadian forces to overtake the city. And with that being said, many of the German high-ranking officials kind of just really didn't follow Hitler's rule anymore. Many of them were given orders by Hitler to continue to hold the city, and as they were being pushed out eventually by the Allied powers, Hitler ordered the German officials to destroy it. Destroy the Eiffel Tower, right? Destroy these political buildings and these symbols of freedom in Paris, in France. Destroy the capital. Destroy any type of bridges or roads leading into Paris, so the Allied powers, and out of Paris, so the Allied powers would have a harder time reaching the German borders. You think these German officials did that? No, they didn't. They kind of just threw those orders to the side. And it really just showed towards the end of the war where we're at and how these German officials even really didn't agree with Hitler's orders anymore or his strategies from here on out. And we'll talk about some of these planned assassination attempts for Hitler, of Hitler, but we'll save that for next week. So the liberation of Paris was very important, especially because now, after 4 years, one of the Allied powers is now liberated. Okay, and I showed the pictures of Hitler posing in front of the Eiffel Tower. I showed the pictures of him using that rail car of the armistice in 1918 at the end of World War I, right, and how he made France surrender in that rail car. Right, so this was very important now that the Allied powers liberated Paris, liberated France. Okay, this was very significant. And it just showed that this is really coming to an end here soon, that Germany was going to be defeated. All right, so is there any questions on the liberation of France? Okay, is there any questions about the French resistance fighters and how they did their part, especially to push the Allied powers to overtake Paris? And especially now, the German officials are not even following Hitler's rule anymore. Okay, it looks like the tides are turning here in World War II, and it's inevitable, sooner or later, that Germany's going to surrender. All right, guys, good? All right, so I want you guys work on this reading now. You have the rest of the time to finish this up. Shouldn't take you too long. Well, here, let me play this video first, and then I'll let you guys work on that reading. Well, here's some pictures, actually, liberation of Paris. I wanted to show you that. As you can see, the Allied powers, okay, it's almost like a parade as the Allied powers are marching through here and showing that they overtook France and pushed the German authority out, okay? Obviously, the citizens are jumping up and down. Okay, it's interesting. This monument here, okay, it's really banded all throughout Europe for the ending of World War I. And now, finally, the Allied powers, they pushed the German authority out of there, and they're really just showing that peace is returned. Okay, so there are some pictures of some of the fighting within Paris during that time. All right. All right, so here's the reading for today. It's just about the liberation of Paris. Here's a link. You can click that, read it, and answer these questions. I'll just show you this video right now.